Hello, ladies and gentlemen, good people of the internet. This is Jed from Your Guitar Academy. Today we're going to be looking at Lenny by Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay, just a few things to talk about before we jump into this piece. Like the Texas Flood video, I've tuned the guitar down half a step. So I've put some slightly heavier gauge strings on, and I'm down to E flat, or E flat standard. I just find this useful for playing either along with Stevie Ray, or if you're gonna learn it, it helps in ways that the guitar, I think, sounds tonally better. It just sounds better to me in E flat. Something about that. Also, if you don't put heavier strings on, you get slightly more release on the string, so slightly less tension. But what you can do if you want to play it in standard tuning, learn it maybe down half a step and then just tune back up and play it where I've taught it on the neck. So let's jump straight in. Let's look at the intro first. That's the best place to start. So we're going to start with this chord voicing. Now it's an E major 7, but there's no E in this chord. So hopefully if we've got a bass player, they're playing this. And over the top, we've got this voicing. So we're going to have our middle finger on the 7th fret of the low E string. We're going to mute the A string. Then we've got our index finger on the 6th fret of the D string. Then we've got our ring finger on the, what fret is that? 8th fret of the G string. So that's your major 7 there. So we've got 5th, major 3rd, major 7. Then with our pinky, we're going to lay that across the 9th fret of both the B and the top E string. So that's our first chord there. Oh yeah, another key part to this song that I didn't mention is the whammy bar. So this comes in massively for these chords. So we're going to be using that a lot when we play these chords. Okay, so first of all, we're going to strum that chord, give it some whammy. Then we're moving up here to this chord. Now this is an E major 6. So this voicing is going to happen a lot. So the way we play this one, E major 6 here, we've got our middle finger. It's on the 12th fret of the low E string. Then our index finger is on the 11th fret of the D string. Then our 4th finger, or our pinky, is going to be on the 13th fret of the G string. And then our ring finger or third finger is going to be on the 12th fret of the B string. And so we're going to be muting the A string and the top E string. So again, this is an E major 6. And that's our second chord that we're going to play in the intro. So we strum that and give it some whammy. Now, just to mention with this technique here with the whammy bar, I've got a bridge that is slightly floating, so it's not touching the body of the guitar, it's slightly raised, and that means that I can sharpen the chord if I want to. So. And I like that for several reasons, but one of them is it gives an even vibrato on the chord. So. And what I do is I do it nice and gently, and I don't do it too violently or too fast or too much, basically. So it's not going... You can hear the difference between and... I think the sentiment of this tune is kind of soft and gentle, so bear that in mind. So yeah, that'll be our second chord in the intro. In fact, let's recap, because I've forgotten what happens after that. So we've got first chord, second chord, great. After that, we're going to hit the low E string and then harmonics on the B and top E string. So the way I'm doing those harmonics is I'm laying my finger gently, I'm not pressing down, just laying it gently over the strings, directly over the fret. So, because you'll notice the harmonics don't ring out well if you place your fingers in between the frets. So you want to hit low E string, and then the harmonics on the top two strings, on the 12th fret, and give it a bit of whammy. Then we've got this phrase. I'll play that one more time for you. So what's happening here is it's E major pentatonic, is how we're going to think about it. And I'm starting here. This would be the 5th box shape of major pentatonic. So it's going from the 5th box shape, say that fast, into the first one. So here's the first part of the phrase. So there, that slide there is sliding into the first box shape. So we're starting with our ring finger. We're going to slide from the 7th to the 9th on the low E string. So that's the first part. Then we're landing on the 7th on the A string with our index finger. And then this is when we transition into box shape 1. So that next bit, we're sliding from the 9th fret to the 11th with our ring finger. So that'll be that movement. So we've got... And then we're landing on the 9th fret of the D string with our first finger. Then we're going to do this. So it kind of becomes a double stop. What we're doing there is a hammer-on and a pull-off on the G string from the 9th to the 11th. And we keep that note held down. So, and then what we do with that note held down, we hammer on the 9th to the 11th on the D string. So that's index finger and hammering on with the ring finger. So that whole phrase should sound like this. I'll play that one more time, but slightly cleaner. And then we're going to hit an open E string for this next part of the song. And then we come back to this chord. So this is the first chord that we played. This is an E major 7. It's also got a 6 in it, but I'm just going to call it E major 7. So we hit the low E string. And this is where the theme comes in. So we've got this. So we strum this E major 7. Then we're going. So what that is I'm doing an up pick on the 7th fret of the top E string. Index finger is playing that note. Then we're jumping down to the B string, doing a hammer-on to the 9th fret from the 7th. So we've got index finger on the 7th fret of the B string, hammer-on. Again, I'm doing another upstroke there, so we go. Then we go back to that note, the 7th fret on the B string. And we're doing that phrase. So 7th fret on the B string, quickly jumping down to the 9th fret on the G string with the ring finger. So that is. And from there, we're going to jump down to that A note on the E string, low E string, 5th fret. And then we're going to play this chord. This is an A6. So this is that voicing that I showed you up here on the 12th fret, and I'll just talk you through the voicing again. So middle finger, 5th fret on the low E string, index finger, 4th fret on the D string, pinky, or 4th finger on the 6th fret of the G string, and then your 3rd finger on the 5th fret of the B string. So that phrase again. So when we jump down here, we hit that fret twice. So we go, and then we strum the rest of the chord. So that's. And any time a chord is played in this song, there's always use of the whammy bar. So we go we hit this root note 2 times, strum the chord down, and then what I'm doing here is slightly different to the recording. So I strum that chord up. I think what Stevie Ray Vaughan did was he strummed all the strings open. So he would go into the next phrase. The reason I don't strum the open strings is because when I learnt the tune, I found it too difficult to do that and make it sound good. So what I did instead was just strum the chord. So you can choose what you want to do. If you want to sound more like Stevie Ray, then try and do this. What's happening there is you're doing an upstroke down all of the strings, but you're almost instantaneously muting them. So it's like a breath, you know, if a singer was going. And then that's going into the next phrase. So we've got or. So I'll talk you through that next phrase. So like before, we're going to be in these same box shapes. So 5 and 1. This part is the same. So we're sliding from 7 to 9 on the low E string. I do that with my ring finger. Landing on the 7th on the A string. Then sliding from 9 to 11 on the A string. Landing on 9 on the D string. Then it's different here. So we've got. Again, it sort of is a double stop thing. So we've got. So my index finger is living on the 9th fret, basically. What I'm doing there is a hammer on from the 9th to the 11th on the G string. And then I'm picking the 9th fret again, so no pull off. And then this. So that's a double stop, and what I'm doing is I'm hammering on with my ring finger to the 11th fret on the D string, and I do that twice. So that whole phrase again is. And then after that phrase, we play the open low E string again, so. Then we're going to be back to this E major 7, and we play the little tune again that we went through before. So we got. That's the next phrase. It's very similar. The only difference is the ending. So if you want to understand this bit, or if you're confused by it, just go back and watch that previous part of the video where I talked through how to play this bit. So this next phrase, what does it do? We go. So these chords here are the same as before. Everything's the same. This is the same, this run up here. And then it varies. Here it goes. So what I'm doing here, we're in box shape 1. Again, index finger is living on the 9th fret. So it's kind of like a double stop thing happening. And what I'm doing is a hammer on and a pull off. So hammer on and a pull off on the 9th to the 11th fret of the G string, landing on the 11th fret of the D string, and then we do a hammer on from the 9th to the 11th on the A string, and land on the 9th fret of the D string, but it's essentially a double stop. So we keep that note ringing out. We've got. So let me play that in context again for you. So we've got. I'll do that one more time. And then we're on to the third and final phrase of the beginning of this theme. Everything is the same again, up until the very last part of the little twiddly bit that's going on. So we've got the E major 7 chord, and then the A major 6. And then we've got, so what happens here is there's an open E string before the phrase, which kind of, it feels like it displaces the phrase by a beat, and it has a really interesting feel. So if I play that for you, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one's interesting because it has that little disjointed note at the beginning. So we've got the beginning of the phrase. So it's all the same up until that note. So E major 7, then this. And then after the rake up, we're going to hit the low E string. So we've got. And then we play the very similar phrase that we've played before. So. So what that is, I'm going to include the low E string note in this phrase because it's useful to think about it that way. Because the phrase is really starting on that note. So we've got. So we've got low E string. And then the same thing happens here. We're sliding from 7 to 9 on the low E string, landing on the 7th fret on the A string with the index finger. Sliding up again, 9 to 11 on the A string with the ring finger. It helps to sing the note sometimes. Landing on the 9th fret of the D string with the index. So, in fact, what we do here is we just climb up the scale, I believe, in box shape 1. So we've got. Yeah, up to that note. So 11th fret on the D string, and then we're going to do hammer on and pull off from the 9th to the 11th on the G string. And we're going to land back on the, what fret is that? 11th fret on the D string. So that phrase altogether is. And then after this is still part of the phrase, is we hit the low E string and we mute it almost instantly, and then we're going to hit. It's weird. So it's low E string. You mute the low E string, you hit the harmonics on the top B and E string on the 12th fret again. So we go. It's kind of a tricky phrase because you mute the low E string, hit these harmonics. So you go. Then you mute the harmonics and then you hit the low E string again. So you've got. And then you mute that E string. So everything here you're going to mute immediately after you play it. Let me do that in context with that last phrase. So we got. I hope that makes sense. So let me play that one more time and I'll talk through it again. So we've got. So what happens here is we play these two chords again, but this time we're going to go into what I call the B section of the theme. So let me show you how to do that. So we play this E major 7 voicing again, and this phrase that we love and know so well. Play that A major 6 again, and then here it's different. So here it's the B section of the tune. So, and what we're doing is arpeggiating the chord. So I hit the low E string, then the D string, then I hit the B and the G. And then we're going to slide this shape up all the way to a B major 6, so 2 frets. So let me play that and I'll explain it. So that's what it should sound like. So once we've arpeggiated this A major 6, you're going to slide it up a semitone. So 1 fret, same shape, same voicing. Then here you're going to pluck the B and the G string, and then slide up to B major 6. So. And here we're going to arpeggiate again, but just play the D, G, and B string. So we got, I'll do that in context. So you're going to arpeggiate up, so the D, the G, and the B string on this B major 6. Then we're going to play the B and the G string like this. So after that we've got... so that's B, G, B, G. So what is that over the beat? So that's like... Over a bar, if this is helpful, this arpeggiation of the chord, the B and the G string, is happening on beats 1 and 2 of the bar, and then the and of 3, and then the downbeat of 4. So that would be... So if I counted that in, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that makes sense. So let me play that all in context again. So this is the B section of the tune, going up to, so climbing up from this A major 6 up to a B major 6. So. Now, during all of this, there is, again, a lot of use of the whammy. So... you can do things like that. You play around with it and you can do your own thing. Usually the whammy happens after the arpeggiation, so you don't use it whilst you're picking the strings. So you've got... Then we're going to slide all the way up to the 10th fret. So this will be a D major 6. So what I do here is I strum that low E string to get the root note of the chord. And then it's the same arpeggiation as the B major 6 chord. So you arpeggiate upwards. So you play the D string, the G string, and the B string. And then you do the same thing. You go. So I'll play that in context again. So we've got... Then we're going to slide all the way down to the G, so G major 6. And we're going to do exactly the same picking that we just did for the B major 6 and the D major 6. So. And And then very slightly differently on these last two chords. I think we spend half as much time on these chords. So from this G major 6, we're going up to a B flat major 6. And what I do here is almost the same. We hit the root note of the chord, then we arpeggiate upwards from the D string, so D, G, B, and then we go back to the G string. So we've got, oops. And at that point you mute the chord, so you've got, and the way I mute that is with my left hand, so left hand muting. If you don't know what left hand muting is, you just very gently release your fingers from the strings, but you don't take them off the fretboard. So. And then the last chord is an A major 6, and the way we play that is we pluck the root note, and then just strum the chord. So no arpeggiation here. So let me play all of that in context. So this is going from the A section to the B section. So the next phrase after that is going back to the A section here. We're going, so what is that? Box shape, starting on box shape 4, just for one note. And then we're sliding into 5. And what I'm doing there is starting on the 5th fret, my index finger, low E string. Sliding from the 7th to the 9th on the low E string. Landing on the 7th on the A string. And then doing a hammer-on from 7 to 9 on the A strings. And then we hit the low E string again. So. And then we play those harmonics that we love oh so much, again on the 12th fret of the B and the E string. So. Just while I'm thinking about it, we're not going to teach the whole tune, but at the very end, he does a great thing. I just want to add it in now because I love it so much, is he hits, the very last thing he does is he hits the 12th fret harmonics on the neck pickup, changes to the bridge pickup so that he can hit that harmonic. And I love that. That's just above that neck pickup. Like, it's beyond the frets, but I just wanted to add that in. I like that bit. Cool. So after that low E string, those 12th fret harmonics, we're going to land on that A6 again. So lots of whammy, and then very similar phrase here. Starting on that 5th fret of the low E string again, sliding from 7 to 9 on the low E string, landing on the 7th fret of the A string. Then you do 2 hammer-ons on the A string. After that, we go back to this beloved voicing, the E major 7. And play this phrase one more time. Okay, so let's jump into the first solo of this tune. So what's happening harmonically, underneath the solo, is it's basically those 2 chords from the theme. So just an E for a bar, and then A for a bar. Because that's being played by a bass, the tonality of the chords is ambiguous. So because you've got this, you can play a major third or a minor third over it. So what happens in this first solo is there is switching from major blues to minor blues, which is really common with the blues anyway. But I just thought I'd mention that. And that's useful if you are going to improvise over this tune. So let me give you a little example, actually. Before we jump into it, here's just a little example of what you can do harmonically over the quote-unquote chord changes. So. So this is essentially what's going on underneath the first solo. So you can, if you were going to improvise, this is all major blues or major pentatonic. And then you can switch to minor. And you'll notice that it doesn't feel uncomfortable when you switch from major to minor, because, like I said before, there's no tonality to those root notes. Just a side note. All right, let's jump into the first solo. So we're gonna abandon the whammy bar because there's no whammy bar use in this first solo, so you can just forget about that for this. We're gonna start this first phrase on the high E string, and it's major pentatonic. So if you're thinking about box shapes, essentially, that would be a weird way to think about this, but essentially it's going to run through all the box shapes, but just on one string. I don't think about it like that. I think about it as a linear way of approaching the scale, which is another way to think about it. So if you take major pentatonic across an octave, that's what it looks like. And that's where these phrases are going to be. So this is the first phrase. We're starting on the 2nd fret. So we've got a hammer on from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. So I'm starting with my index finger on the 2nd fret, hammering onto the 4th. Then we're sliding up to the 7th. And then doing... The way I play that is with no picking. So that whole first phrase is just one pluck of the first note. So you hammer onto the 4th, slide up to the 7th, pull off to the 4th, hammer on back to the 7th. So then the next phrase is, and what that is a hammer on from the 4th to the 7th, slide up to the 9th. So then the third phrase is very similar. Hammer on from the 7th to the 9th, slide up to the 12th fret. So here's those first 3 phrases in context with the harmony. So the phrase after that third one. So we've got this. So what's happening there is a hammer on and a pull off from the 9th to the 12th fret on the top E string. Then we slide down to the 7th. And then here we're going to pick every note. So we've got 9, 7, 9, 7. So that whole phrase, it sounds like this. So let me play all of those phrases up to there with the harmony. So and then at this point, we're going to change to minor pentatonic or minor blues. So we're going to be first box shape position of E minor. So that'll be on your 12th fret. And you'll notice that phrase ends on the major 6. So here I think about it as blues rather than major blues or minor blues. The nature of the blues is it's a mix, usually, of both. So that's how I think about it. But here's the phrase. What it is kind of a double stop, but you're missing out the B string. So it's going to be a double stop using the G and the top E string. The phrase starts here, though, on the D string, 14th fret, with your ring finger. That's your first note. And this is where the double stop begins. So we got... What that is I'm laying my index finger across the 12th fret and playing the 12th fret of the G and the E. The way I'm doing that is like this kind of, is this economy picking? Economy picking? Hybrid picking? I forget the name of this picking, but I'm using my pick to pluck the G string and I'm using my ring finger in this case, you can use whatever finger feels comfortable, to pluck the top E string, so like this. Here's the next part of that phrase, so we've hit the 14th fret on the D string. Then we're doing this double stop on the G and top E string. Then we're putting our ring finger on the 14th fret of the G string, and we're gonna do that double stop twice. Second time you mute it instantly. So. Then we kind of repeat that phrase. We're gonna do 14th fret on the D string again. Then the 12th fret on both the G and the top E string. Then we do the 14th on the G and the 12th on the E string. Then this. So what that is that little blues lick, but with the double stop. So we pluck the G and the top E string, and here I'm going. So what I'm doing there is a hammer on and a pull off from the 14th to the 15th fret on the G string, and then a pull off from the 14th to the 12th on the G string, and then we stop the double stop. So, and after that, so after this phrase, we're going to hit the 14th fret twice on the G string, and then the 12th fret on the G string with a slight bend. So one of those like little, very microtonal bluesy bends. And then we hit this note here, so the 14th fret on the D string, our root note, so the E, 3 times. So. And then we're finishing that phrase on the 11th fret on the D string. So let me play all of that in context. Cool, so here's the next phrase. Cool, so here's the first part of this next phrase. This feels really good to play for some reason. I'm not sure why. So we're starting on the 14th fret of the D string, root note. I'm doing this like alternate picking because it feels the most economic, most comfortable. So that's 14th fret on the D string, 12th fret on the G, 14th fret on the G. Then we're doing a full tone bend from 14, essentially up to 16. And then we're gonna pluck it again and bend down, so that's kind of like 16 to 14. And then we hit the 12th fret on the G string again. Again, I do these kind of like microtonal bluesy bends because it adds to the sound. And again, we're hitting that root note 3 times when we end that phrase. And then there's this phrase, so. So this phrase is quite long, but I'll break it down. So we start on the 11th fret of the D string, 14th fret of the D string, and then we do a hammer on from 12 to 13 on the G string, then 14th fret on the G string, then hammer on again, 12 to 13 on the G string. So then we land on the root note, and now we kind of climb down the bluesy, I guess it's major blues here, so you got. Actually, it's kind of going down the chord, so you've got root note, then the 5th, so that's the 14th fret on the A string, 12th fret on the A string, 11th fret on the A string. Then you just climb up the major pentatonic, so that would be. 11th fret on the A string, 14th fret on the A string, 11th fret on the D string, 14th fret on the D string. And here we do a little chromatic movement, so this is the next part of this long phrase. 12th fret on the G string, 13th fret on the G string. Then it's 14th fret, and as we pluck it, we bend it. Yeah, this is a long phrase. There's not a break for a long time. So this chromatic rising. Then this classic blues phrase. So we're bending this 14th fret on the G string. Then we do 12 on the B, 12 on the top E, 15th on the B, 12th on the B. You've probably played something like that before. Then we're doing this, it's a classic Stevie Ray Vaughan lick, this. So, from that 12th fret on the B, we're jumping to the 14th on the top E. Then we're doing a hammer-on and a pull-off from 12 to 13 on the top E string. And then we're playing 15th on the B and then 12 on the B, and I think I pluck all of this. Apart from that hammer-on and pull-off on the top E string, I pluck everything. So that's where we've got to so far. Then, what do we have after that? A very similar phrase, but we're playing 15 on the top E string, then hammer on and pull off from 12 to 14 on the top E string. After that, it's 15 on the B string, then 12 on the top E string, then 12 on the B string, and then 12 on the top E string. So, okay, let me play everything that I've been teaching you how to play, each phrase of this solo up to where we are, with the harmony. So here we go. Cool. So this phrase, again, it continues. There's not a break in it. So after we've gone... we've got this bit. So... so the next part here is... so what that is sliding down from the, 15th to the 14th on the G string, and then a pull off from 14 to 12 on the G string, and landing on the root note on the D string, 14th fret, jumping back to the 12th fret on the G string. Then we do some double stops, so 14 on the G and the B string. And what I do here, you can either bend or slide up. I think he slides. So what I do there is pluck the 14th fret as a double stop, slide up, return to the 14th and pluck it. And then I play the 12th fret as a double stop. And land on the root note. So... this phrase is long and crazy. It took me a long time to learn this next part. So here's the phrase again. So we've just landed on the 12th fret on the D string. Then we do a double stop on the 14th fret of both the G and the B. Hit the root note on the D string, 14th fret. Then a double stop on the 12th fret of the G and the B string. Yep, and then we've got this phrase. Now, it took me a long time to hear that low 12th fret note, but it helps with playing the phrase. So what we've got there is 14 on the D string, 12 on the D string, 14 on the A string, and then back up. And it's just minor pentatonic. 12th fret on the D string, 14th fret on the D string, 12th fret on the low E string. And I play that with my thumb, so just for ease, you know. It feels easy for me to do that. If that's not easy, you try another finger. So after we hit this low note on the 12th fret of the low string with our thumb, or whichever finger you choose, we've got this phrase. Now this is rhythmically strange and it took me a while to get, but I'll show you where to put your fingers. So you got... So after that, we're going to jump to double stops again on the 12th fret of the G and the B, then the 14th fret on the D string. So we've got these double stops that jump down from 14, 12, root note, 14, 12, root note. Then we jump back to those 14th fret double stops on the G and the B. And what it does here is it alternates between the double stops and the root note. So that'd be 14 double stop, root note on the D string, 12 fret double stop, root note on the D string, 14th fret again. So that whole phrase. So this next part of the phrase is 14th fret double stop, root note, 12th fret double stop, root note, does that again, 14th fret double stop, root note on the D string, 12th fret double stop, root note on the D string. So So after the second time through that phrase, so that would sound like this. From the 12th fret double stop, we're going to go to the 14th fret double stop and do a kind of bend with it. So what I'll do is I will play this part of this very long phrase in context with these double stops so it makes sense for you. So, and I'll do it a bit slower. So that's what we're dealing with. And then we jump there to the 14th. So 14th fret double stops. And it's like a 14, and then it's sort of a pre-bend. So it's a pre-bend, you pluck it and let it come back down. Then we do the double stops on the 12th fret again. Then we do 14 on the D string, 12 on the D string, 14 on the D string. So then, and that last part of the phrase is, so that's 12 on the G string, slight pre-bend, sorry, not a pre-bend, like a microtonal bluesy bend. Hit the root note on the D string, 14th fret. Hit the 5th of the key, so that's the 14th fret on the A string. Jump back to the root note. And then the last note of that phrase is the 12th fret on the G string with a slight bend. Now let me play all of that in context for you. So we've got... Next part sounds like this. So that phrase there. Climbing up to the root note. So we're starting on the 12th fret of the B string, 12th fret of the B string, 14th fret of the B string. And as Stevie Ray Vaughan would say, sting that note on the 12th fret. So pluck it hard, make it sound emotional. After that, we're doing pre-bend. Sorry, I always call them pre-bends. They're like microtonal bends. They're like a bluesy, slight bluesy bend on the 15th fret of the top E string. And that's one where you bend up and then you don't let it bend back down. You cut the note off. So land on the root note on the 12th fret of the E string. Then we're going to do a string skip, jump down to the G string. We're going to bend the 14th fret up and down. Hit the 12th fret with one of those kind of bluesy bends. Hit the root note twice. And we're going to then hit the 11th fret on the D string. So here's that phrase. So after you've hit this note on the 11th fret of the D string, we're going to pluck. You can do either the D from the D string or from the G string. You just I lay my third finger, you lay any finger across the 12th fret of all of those strings and you pluck all of them and you slide down. So here's the last phrase. Starts with a double stop. It's a slide from the 11th into the 12th on the top E string and B string. Then we're going to do a double stop on the 14th of the G and the B again. Double stop on the 12th fret of the G and the B. And then we pluck that root note twice. So then we do this. It's a similar thing, hitting that low root note on the low string. We're doing 12th fret on the D, 14th fret on the D, root note on the low E string, so 12th fret. I do that with my thumb again. So that phrase there is, yeah. Cool, then we got some more double stops. You've probably heard that before. It's a very common blues phrase. So what that is I'm double stopping on the G and the B string, hammering on to the, what fret is that? 13th fret on the G string with my middle finger, then doing a double stop on the G and the B, 14th fret with my ring finger. Then again, this double stop on the 12th with a hammer on to the 13 on the G, and then the root note on the D string, which is the 14th fret. So after that, we've got... So this bit's kind of interesting. Again, it's this first position box shape. 14th fret on the A string. 12th fret on the D string. Then we do 12th fret on the A string and 14th fret on the D string. It's kind of like it inverts. So. Then we move down to the 11th fret on the A string. Hit that 14th fret again on the D string. Then 11 on the A, and then 12 on the D. So we've got... So this next phrase is going to be 12th fret on the A string, and then 12th fret on the G string, and I do that using my first two fingers. And then you go back down to that A string, so like that. And then we do a slide from the 12 to the 14 on the G string, and then back to the 12, and you pluck it, give it some vibrato, put some feeling into it. The last phrase runs down the blues scale. Runs down the blues scale to the minor third. So we've got 14th fret D string, 12th fret D string, 14th fret A, 13th fret A, 12th fret A, 15th fret low E string. Just running down the blues scale. And then we go up the minor pentatonic. starting on that 12th fret there of the A string. So that's a hammer on, 12 to 14 on the A string. Land on the 12th fret on the D string. And then you do another hammer on. So 12 to 14 on the D string. And then pluck that D string again. And then you pluck the low E string. And you're done with the first solo. So that last phrase sounds like this. And then what happens after that is the theme comes back in. And I believe it goes into the B section. But that's everything you need so far. Thanks for tuning into this video and watching this lesson on how to play Lenny. If you are confused or you're struggling with any bits, there'll be timestamps in the video, so you can go back and check those bits out on how to play them. Otherwise, thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.